Welcome to the Soul and the Mind, a space where wisdom meets authenticity and truth finds its voice. The Soul and the Mind is brought to you by My Enchanting Castle Media, and I am your host, the Blind Justice Chukwu. Today's discussion may be deep and sensitive, but feel free to challenge perspectives and bring your full, authentic self to this show. The discussion this week examines the societal and institutional response to sexual harassment using two active senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Natasha Akpoti and Senator Godswill Akpabio, as a case study. While we cannot highlight all the narratives making the rounds, there are a few that cannot be ignored. Today's dialogue, therefore, will critically explore the allegations, responses, and the wider impact of sexual misconduct in Nigerian government spaces. Well, where do we start? Maybe to analyze Senator Akpoti Uduaga's allegations and the counter narratives. But before we start, permit me to welcome our guests. So in our midst right now, we have four distinguished guests. One is Felix. Felix, can you say hi to the guests, please?
Hello everyone. It's so nice to be here.
Thank you. And the next is Miss Peace. Please, can you introduce yourself and say hi to the guests?
It's a pleasure from me. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. And we have Kingsley. Kingsley, please, can you say hi to the guest?
Yeah, hello everyone. Good evening again.
Thank you. And the last but not the least is Zipporah. Please say hi to the guest.
Hello, everyone. Good to have us here.
Thank you very much. So we may be expecting some more guests, but for now, it is important to start. As you may already know, we have an ongoing issue in Nigeria between two distinguished senators, Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduagha, who is a woman senator representing Kogi Central, Kogi State's Central Senatorial District, I think. And we have the Senate President, who is Senator Godswill Akpabio from Akwa Ibom State. So we all know the story that led to what we are having today in Nigeria. A senator, a woman, cried out, that she has been sexually harassed, and she has been obstructed from, executing her legislative functions and blah, blah, blah. But the information coming to us recently is that she has been suspended on technicalities. That is my own opinion, and everyone can also have their own opinion. But today we want to analyze what exactly is the problem. What do we think is the problem? And we have at least a few questions to ask that will help us to drive this conversation. Please feel free to challenge perspective, like I mentioned. So if you were to ask Peace, what do you think is the problem between Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduagha and Senator Godswill Akpabio?
I think from my end here, the problem is dislike, turning down. One, we don't have a base, we don't have a fact here, but with what is trending, the dislike here is maybe there was a pass and the other one said, no, resisted it. That is why we are hearing it. If there was no disagreement from the end of Natasha, we will not be here, we will not be sitting down here. Sexual harassment, I think, is part of our daily activities. It is only when there is a dispute, it's only when there is a turn down, that is when the society come and say blah 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 blah. It can be from both ends. It might be from what do they call it, the male or the female. I think on this saga, what I dislike, whether there is a past, whether there is a dislike, whatever the case may be, the action, the suspension, that is what I dislike. Because one, there is an accuser, and the accusee has no right to suspend the accuser. I don't know if I'm supposed to be judged, because one, the Akpabio is being accused from the end of the female senator. If you're supposed to be on a plate, the both of them are supposed to be sanctioned for questioning. Then at the end of it, the other one let me, for instance, Natasha, if she does not have a proof towards Akpabio, you cannot be sitting on the seat. You are the one being accused. It's not from the other Senate member. He's supposed to step down for proper investigation, not taking any action. I think that is where I dislike.
Thank you very much, Peace. And if I understand a few points, a few takeaway from what you have explained now is there may be some political undertone. There may be some, gaps, in our rules and laws, and there may be some power dynamics. I also understand from your submission right now that sexual harassment can be both ways. Okay, so these are very important points that we need to keep in mind as we continue this conversation. But then I would turn to Zipporah, because she is a lawyer and she's a human rights lawyer. So let us hear from her understanding of sexual harassment, and whether the definition of sexual harassment based on maybe the international law is something that resonates with Nigeria. So Felix, Ms. Peace mentioned that sexual harassment can be both ways. Do you have any lights that you can throw on that?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. The line of sexual harassment, it can be both ways. But in the situation in which we are discussing, it was one party who stated vocally that she experienced, she was sexually harassed. Now, the term I used was she experiencing it. She stated it vocally. And this happened to her in her courtesy visit in December 2023 to the Senate, to the senator. And though she stated that there might be proof, but then there has been no, till this day, maybe on the subsequent release, we might have more proof as regards what she has stated. I'm not saying that her claims are not right. I'm not saying that she was not harassed. I'm only stating that if you claim harassment, you should also be able to state proof. Yes, based on the senator's, Senator Akpabio's reaction towards her by giving her a different seat and also not attending to her based on her recent dealings with the Senate. The senator has been a bit biased in dealing with her. It was stated that there had been something that was not really clear happening between both of them, meaning there was, to a large extent, there might be an exchange that was not really clear. Now, this exchange to her, that's from Senator Natasha, is stating there was sexual harassment. That's why the senator is a bit different towards her dealing. He's dealing with her. I feel that if you are stating harassment, you should also give your proof, so you don't see it as you're trying to defame someone else's character. However, I also feel that for the punishments given, it was a bit too much, to the extent the punishment did not really go in line with the what's the word to use now? With the act. When you're suspending someone based on them being vocal about their expression, then you are denying them their human rights. Meaning you have to keep quiet. This is like a dictatorship arena. So I feel a lot is not being said. This is like a build-up to a later light. A lot is not being vocal yet. But based on the information I have with me, I feel that the senator, that Senator Natasha, should be more expressive as regards bringing out proof to claim sexual harassment, so we understand what is really happening here. If it's going to be a political arrangement or someone was really harassed. Do you get my point?
Thank you very. Yes. So I think that's a very good way to transition to Kingsley, because I understand your point based on the information you have. But I'm seeing a little bit of contradictions from what you have said. I don't know if any other person can see something similar. That she was not given a commensurate punishment or sanction, but at the same time that she's not able, that you expect her to be more expressive. So I think she initiated the process of being expressive, and they didn't give her the platform to be fully expressive. So that's my own understanding of what is happening between the two. And again, there could be some political undertone, no doubt about that. So, but Kingsley, do you think that Natasha is not ready to prove her sexual harassment allegation?
Firstly, I want to say this is actually a shame that it came out, from the Nigerian Senate. You understand, it is not something anybody would want to hear outside Nigeria. Just take, for instance, I have a few friends outside Nigeria, and I know the kind of calls I've received, and the chats that have gone out so far. So it's actually a shame that it's happened to us at this time, when we are trying to celebrate women in our own way. But nonetheless, we move. So I would actually disagree a bit on what the last speaker said as regards to proof.
His name is Felix. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, his name is Felix.
Okay, Felix. Yes, as regards proof for sexual harassment. Sexual harassment it can happen to anybody, as we've laid out lately. You will walk on the streets, somebody just make an unwelcome advance at you, that is sexual harassment. Somebody asks you for sexual favors, that is sexual harassment. But then again, when you go further and see those little things we think are normal, they are still sexual harassment. Somebody can physically look at you in a way you do not like, and that is sexual harassment. Do you understand? Then going back to the proof of an issue, I don't think anybody prepares to be sexually harassed. That's just what I want. That's the point I want us to take up with. Nobody prepares him or herself to be sexually harassed. I said this because there are situations where you find yourself and you want to make proof where, okay, you are ready. Let's say sexual favors, like we all see in some universities these days, and you see somebody dressed, okay, with camera and all that, just to make sure that, yes, this lecturer falls into my trap, and I get him, so I get a proof that he actually wanted, to harass me sexually. But what about those people who don't prepare, who just walk on the street and somebody calls them and start telling them things they do not like, even when they try to restrain themselves? So I don't think she has done anything wrong. More so, the case is still in court. I'm not a lawyer, but I know you guys who are legally minded. The case is still in court. If there's any proof to be given, it should be given in the court. She has filed her suit already. If there's any proof to be given, it should be in the court. So she doesn't need to prove anybody anywhere. She is harassed. She has been harassed, and she has been harassed. The thing, what I think we should be looking at is, okay, somebody claimed that, okay, you harassed me. Fine. How do we now settle the issue? Are you supposed to be a judge on your own matter? Or
No.
for the issue of being yes, you shouldn't be a judge on your own matter. But for the issue of providing proof, I don't think she needs enough proof. For the fact that she has said that I am being harassed sexually, and she has dropped her case on in court. Whatever proof we need, there are actually procedures to follow to get this to get those proof, or what to even show the proof actually. But then, first things first, you can't be sitting down on where you're sitting and making the person who even claiming that he's a victim already is being victimized again by the same person who is even accused. What other proof do we need here?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Again, like I said,
Can I say something?
Yeah. So, sorry, before you say something, like I said earlier, everybody is entitled to their own informed perspectives and opinions. So, and I appreciate all the submissions, and this is exactly what this platform is all about. So, Felix, please, you have the floor.
Okay, when I said that, I said two things. Firstly, I said the punishment she was given does not commensurate whatever act has been done, because you are yet to really find out what really is being based here before you're giving her a sanction, based on the fact that you had the power. That's the Senate president, and in this case. Now, I said, if you're laying a claim, you should be able to provide proof. I did not say she does not have proof for the claim she has laid. And also, I said, at this point in time, it's looking like my word against yours. Because we're yet to have, I'm not going to be biased in my thought line. We're yet to have like a clearer picture. You said this. Yes, what she might have said might be the truth. But it will not really hold water in the face of the law if we cannot find someone to really, or something that give, or like a line of or a pattern that says this is what this person is known for, to back up your case. So yes, I don't want to feel a bit too sentimental in my dealings here, because I don't know the both of them from anywhere. However, I'll try to be neutral on this ground that states that if she has been harassed as she has claimed, I'm not saying she has not been harassed. If she has been harassed as she has claimed, this is also a public figure. They are both public figure, and they are both representing Nigeria in the international face. So whatever harassment, whatever claims that you claim to have, over time, please just show proof that states what you have said is the truth. I know she has not been treated fairly. I don't see that. I have never stated that what she's going through is a fair treatment. But what I'm stating is, so it's not going to look like my words against yours, give us a backup document or a backup claim. I believe I heard the conversation on the right to TV that she said her husband was there. The husband can also come up and say, okay, I overheard this thing. It gives us a more baseline conversation that's, okay, this thing actually happened because someone was there. Do you get my point?
Yes. So thank you very much, Felix. I think what you're pointing at now is, Natasha, prove your sexual harassment allegation, and I think this is where we'll be transiting to. Moving over to Zipporah to explain to us what sexual harassment is, and so what sexual harassment is, and if Natasha's claim of sexual harassment that we know so far can qualify as can fall within that definition of sexual harassment in Nigeria. Zippy, please, because we'd like you to please explain to us, using some as a lawyer, and tie what we have been discussing together.
First of all, I would like to approach the question from the angle of sexual harassment, and then talk about the broad concept of discrimination on grounds of gender, because I see this issue from an angle that is beyond just the fact that a person, a human person who is entitled to their full dignity and honor as a human being, is being derogated upon, and then from the broader picture of the fact that someone has been discriminated against on grounds of their gender. First of all, harassment should not and cannot be justified under any circumstances or under any kind of proof. There's no. I'm speaking now from the angle of European anti-discrimination laws, and I'm not very confident with what is the position in terms of the either the African regional laws concerning this, or Nigeria in specific, because unfortunately I studied law as a general subject in Nigeria, and then now I'm focused more on European and international law. So and why I'm referencing European law is that if for any reason this does not correspond with what we have in our regional law, and especially because now we are speaking about people in parliament, probably this conversation would get to them some way, and we would find a way to propose laws that would model what other regions, other progressive regions are doing. So when it comes to harassment, there is no justification for harassment. And so what we find in Western world is that people are very, very extremely careful, so that there's no appearance, there's nothing to even point to harassment, because once the matter comes up, it cannot be justified. You can only try to defend yourself that, okay, I have this defense, but justification, just for clarity, justification means like I have a basis for doing this. That's what justification means. Why defense?
I have a reason.
You have a reason. You have a reason. You have a purpose, for doing this. And defense, I'm trying to point the difference between justification and defense. And defense is that, yes, okay, this has happened, but I can defend myself. I can provide an excuse for doing this. So we need to be clear that harassment can never be justified, right? That you harass a person, it should not, there's no excuse, right? So we can now talk about the excuse he has, which is, the defense, or a way of shielding himself to say, okay, this was the reason and that was the reason. So just to get that out of the air, that we should not accept any justification for his harassment. And then I want to move to the broader picture of discrimination on grounds of gender. It's an issue that has not just been a cankerworm in Nigeria or in Africa. It's worldwide. It's even in Europe, it's in Asia, it's in the Americas, it's in everywhere. And I will speak to, or maybe just by way of mentioning in passing, international laws, for example, that we have to regulate the issue of discrimination on grounds of gender. We have, for example, the UN Charter of 1945, which provides that everybody, in its preamble, the Charter provides that all persons, both men and women, are reaffirmed to be equal before the law, right? And then we also have the ICCPR, the ICE-SCR. ICCPR is the Convention on Civil and Political Rights, and the International Convention on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. So all of these covenants, they are attached to the UN Charter. Now, they also make provisions for equality of all persons before the law. Then I'll also make reference to CEDAW. CEDAW is the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. So this now is even more specific to the area of women, because it appeared over time that these were the class of persons, or these were the gender that required more mentioning. It's not as though the men should not be protected against discrimination, but then they were more targeted group. And so CEDAW came to reinforce the provisions of the charter, the UN charter that I mentioned earlier, to provide asymmetric protection against discrimination against women. And then lastly, we can also make a reference to the Istanbul Convention. The Istanbul Convention is the third international instrument that I will mention that has the senator in question here can rely upon, and generally we should be aware that makes protection against violence, against discrimination. And the Istanbul Convention, as the name implies, was a convention that was made and ratified by several states so far in Istanbul, in Turkey. Should be in 2011. Yes, I'm correct. That should be 2011. And what basically the convention targets is to prevent and combat violence against women, and then includes domestic violence. But in this case, we're not talking about domestic violence. And then we have a couple of case laws, for example, before the ECHR. The ECHR is the European Court of Human Rights. So the European Court of Human Rights is the regional court in Europe that is focused primarily on human rights. It is based in Strasbourg, in France. It is based primarily on human rights issues. So all the state parties to the Council of Europe, they all persons within these states that have any cases concerning violations of their rights and all of these can go before the ECHR, of course, after exhausting domestic remedies. That is, they have gone to the courts in their member states, and then the court, the matter has been, attended to by all the, like in the case of Nigeria, for example, you have gone to the High Court, you've appealed to the Court of Appeal, and you've probably gone up to the Supreme Court, and then it goes to the regional courts, right? So these are the legal frameworks that I would like to mention. But we can also borrow a leaf from what happens in the case of gender discrimination in Europe, for example. So the court.
So Zippy, sorry, 1 second. So with this legal background, with this background you've laid now, is there any of these treaties that Nigeria did not assent to?
No.
In other words, are all these international laws applicable currently in Nigeria?
By all means, we are signatories to international treaties the ones that I've mentioned, and it should have an application in Nigeria because we have signed and ratified these treaties. Okay.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now I'll just move quickly to the issue of proof, because the earlier speakers they mentioned proof and who alleges must prove. I think we all know this general rule, but it's a rule that admits of exceptions. And in the case of Nigeria, for example, I will bring up something that is not exactly connected, but I'll mention it for the purposes of reform. So there's a rule in Nigeria under the thought law, Justice. I'm sure you remember what we learned in second year in the university. It's a rule called res ipsa loquitur. It's a rule of the law of evidence whereby the mere fact that a thing happens raises an inference of negligence on the part of the defendant, so that there's a prima facie case against him and he has to now prove the case. So I break it down. The plaintiff, that is the person who is coming to court, and in this case, Senator Natasha, she's the one saying this has been done against me. And then the defendant is Akpabio and the two others, if from the writ that I saw. Now, ordinarily, in the law of evidence.
Sorry, Zippy. So I just wanted to clarify some things here before you continue.
Okay.
Senator Natasha Akpoti went to court not on the ground of sexual harassment, but on the ground of defamation. Because the SA to the Senate president defamed her by making statements that that
disparity.
infer that she comes to the Senate sedulously. Okay, so that is that one that is in the court. Then the sexual harassment case, we heard it for the first time on Arise TV, and according to her, she has not filed any case in court in that regard. However, she had made 2 attempts to file the petition in the Senate. The Senate dismissed the first petition on technical grounds, and I think the update I have now is that she has successfully filed in the second. She has successfully refiled the petition. So the petition is not in court, so we can still be free to express our opinions because there is nothing like sub judice in this matter, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
All right.
So it's a good thing that we have a lot of flexibility to talk about it, since it's yet to. The second the second leg of the entire ish problem at hand hasn't been gone to court, and so we can discuss it. But just to mention generally, now under the Evidence Act of 2011 of Nigeria, if you allege, of course you have to prove. So if you say that this person has done this to me, it is for you to prove. However, like I mentioned, the res ipsa loquitur, which is one of the exceptions. So if there's a prima facie case, a prima facie case is a case on the surface of it, like something that is very apparent, that is very obvious that this has happened. In that case, the court can now switch the burden of proof to the party that has that protection of, sitting down and let the person prove against you. So in practical terms, Natasha has the burden to prove. But if a prima facie case, a case on the face of it, a clear case can be, just to establish that this exists, then the court can now shift the burden to Akpabio and the other co-defendants to prove. They now have the burden, and then the burden is relieved of Natasha. So if we are to apply this, for example, in anti-discrimination, in the European Court of Human Rights that I mentioned, and even in the Court of Justice of the EU, the Court of Justice of the EU is now more specific to EU member states. So there's been a couple of cases, especially when it has to do with sensitive issues as gender and sexual orientation and all of this. The court has said that in cases like that, it's very possible to say, okay, the claimant or the plaintiff, all you need to do is to just provide, how do I put this for us to understand? Just provide a case, like just provide facts from which the court can deduce that this has happened, and in that case, the burden is off you. So why this is important to talk about is because Natasha, at this point, there's just so much pressure on her, and in cases such as sensitive as this, it might be overwhelming, really, to even try to prove. Because one of our speakers said something about, she didn't provide enough proof or all of this. But there are cases where the court makes exception if it is overwhelming for the claimant to make this kind of proof, or to prefer this kind of proof, given the nature of the case. It is very possible that the court says, okay, just provide facts from which we can now make deductions, we can now deduce that this has happened, in which case, bam, the body now moves to the defendant. Okay, so in conclusion, on this point, I would say that what I perceive from what is currently happening is a typical case of abuse of power, is a typical case of impunity, is a typical case of the powers that be having the wherewithal to suppress those who do not have as much whims and caprice as they do. and I'm not making any conclusions. But in a free and democratic society as Nigeria is, I believe we have the right to speak up on what we perceive to be the injustice that is going on. And from the perspective of human rights, I do not see how, when your word is against another person and you alone becomes the victim, and in this case her suspension, she alone is suffering from the allegations she has made, because at this stage it is still at the level of being an allegation. So if there's something that should happen, I think both parties involved should they should I won't say suffer, but they should be, if there's someone that should be, yes, they should be, yes, they're both culpable, if I'm to use this word, but it's a word in criminal law, so I don't want to use culpability here, but then they are both in question. Their character and their personality and their competence have now been put in question. And so if anyone is to be sanctioned or is to be put aside, then I think that both parties should have the same fate, as against making one to suffer and then the other is still living their life as normal and as usual, enjoying all privileges attached to that office. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Zippy. Before I switch to the next question, I just wanted to clarify that Felix says Natasha should provide more proof, if I understand Felix clearly. So he is not saying that she doesn't have proof or she has not provided proof, but that she should provide more proof. Now, Zippy, you've touched, on so many things, and the next question I would like to ask is to Miss Peace. What do you think about all this issue? Do you think that the sexual harassment that Natasha presented to the public, the sexual harassment allegation that she presented to the public, is against the Senate or against the Senate president? Not the office of the Senate president, but a particular Senate president, Senator Godswill Akpabio. And do you think that that the Senate president in this case, which is a culprit, if I'm permitted to say, to use that term, is using subtle power that he has, attached to his office to make it harder for Natasha to gain justice?
Nice one here. I think the summary of everything that we have just said, the accuser and the accusee are supposed to step down for proper investigation. Natasha, that is an allegation, is an accused. Akpabio, the accuser, is not supposed to sit on that seat and deliver judgment. He doesn't have that right. That is just the aspect I don't like about it. Natasha, like what I told you, I don't have any facts about her. I think her reaction, she being sexually harassed, is not the issue. It is the way she presented it, out of emotion. I think that is what they are looking at. It is not even what she is being claimed. It is the way she presented the issue, which every normal human being in that aspect will do. When you are to present an issue, when you are emotionally depressed or whatever, anger, I think she presented it. She has presented it calmly, friendly, whatever. I think she would have. I don't know. Let me not say she would have support or no support. My take here is that Akpabio, the accuser, is not permitted in any way to sit on that seat and pass a judgment. That is just my aggressive about the whole saga.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Peace. if she had presented it in a different way, she would have gained more support. That's a very,
Yes.
very strong point. However, I know that the law is made for man, not man for law, but the existing law must always prevail. And that is the rule of law. So if there is an existing law that that she is standing on, regardless of whether we support her or not, that law has to prevail. And like you said, her maybe she might be emotionally depressed, or she might be dealing with a lot of things. And speaking from my own background as somebody who has been working, around trauma and stuff like that, I can tell you that it is real that someone who might be having series of trauma would even react worse than how she reacted or how she acted. And that should not justify, that should not excuse the accused from doing whatever he has been doing with his cronies against this issue. This matter is not against Natasha. It's not between Natasha and Akpabio. I mean, Akpoti Udwanga and Akpabio. It is a case between, a case that involves power dynamics, a case involving gender disparity, a case involving misogyny, a case involving patriarchy. And this goes to review how deep Nigeria has been and is not ready to learn from those international laws and blah, blah, blah that Zippy has highlighted. So now, I think it's important to switch to the counter narratives that have been making the rounds, especially from Senator Akpabio's wife and a few other individuals. So, where do we start? Kingsley, I don't know, are you aware of some of the statements made by Senator Akpabio's wife, and what do you think about those statements? Just wanted to highlight that Mrs. Akpabio came in solidarity to support her husband. She tried to project her husband as a very responsible human being, and who has not harassed anyone sexually. Mrs. Akpabio also claims that the husband to Natasha is a very good friend of theirs, and that he should have told her what was going on, and that Natasha is just a content creator, and she was not right. She was not, she was making false allegation, if I would say. So now the question is, what does Mrs. Akpabio's reaction tell us about gender solidarity or internalized patriarchy in Nigerian society?
Okay, I think you just ended where I wanted to start. It's, we live in a country where everybody talks about a lot of things. And like this sexual harassment issue, we are all for it. When it comes to climate change, we are all out for it. When it comes to, sustainability, we are all out for it. When it comes to these issues, we are all out for it. But when it comes to action, a lot of those people draw back. Do you understand? So in this case, it's not new that she would actually want to protect the interest of her husband, but it's just funny how she came into the situation that it's naturally not even her concern. This is somebody a lot of us didn't even hear in a couple of years, probably after the governorship and all that. Some of us haven't even heard about her for a very long time, and all of a sudden she's coming out now to support her husband, and her husband, who is actually the accused in the let me say the accused in this case, even though not in court already, he's not saying anything, but his body language is showing us that yes, this person, might have something to hide or so. You understand? So in the whole of it, I don't think she have an issue to come and even defend or to even talk in favor of her husband. She's not the husband's spokesperson. She has her limits, and the husband has her limits. His limits, rather. Then for Natasha's issue, I think sexual harassment, I know the husband, that's what she said, right? I know the husband, and she is a content creator and all. That's just one blab using. Sexual harassment is sexual harassment. You don't tell the victim of sexual harassment when to tell her story or when to tell his story. That is their decision. And if she chooses to come out like this or however she feels that she wants to come out and tell her story, that is her decision. And I still want to ask the lawyer, because I like to be enlightened, understand. For cases where people have been harassed, sexually, privately, you understand, where they have no proof, where it was just their word for it, those cases, can they stand in court? Because we've seen a lot of, because issues like this, if a senator of this caliber can be facing, these issues, how much more this, the one uneducated girl in the streets or somewhere who might just, undergo the same scenario and just shut up and all that. So we are advising girls to come out. We are advising women to speak up, when being harassed sexually. But then again, we have an issue here, and we are just being light with it. So I need to understand, if somebody is being harassed privately and that person has little or no proof, can it stand in court? Before I continue, please.
That's a very important question.
So when she said you are just being a content creator, I feel that's insulting. For somebody who is not even in the case at all. Like, you're coming out to tell me I'm being a content creator because I'm trying to air my views. People should be very careful. We live in a world where a lot of things are happening so fast.
I have a question for you. So how does her reaction shape the perception of sexual harassment allegations in Nigeria?
Okay. Before I will hit the nail on the head about her reaction shaping the perspective of sexual harassment in Nigeria, I would just shed a bit of more light. I think when the lawyer was speaking, that's Zipporah, she mentioned about if the complainant, that's the plaintiff, is able to, you can transfer the what's the word to use now? The burden of showing proof to the defendant, if you're able to prove a narrative. I think she mentioned that during her explanation, if I was listening correctly. And also the last speaker was like, she should have handled it, and the way she presented her case, it was a build-up. And this thing only escalated when she had an issue of the seat change that she was not notified about. And before that time, she had writing petitions on different things. I think I was listening to the conversation on Ice TV, and she really expressed herself really deeply. She said most of her, she had been pushing in things to the Senate for approval, and it has been denied. She was not understanding what was really happening, and she was advised by her fellow colleagues to go and see him. Do you get it? Before this whole harassment didn't even build up to this state that it was. And until the issue of seat change, there was no issue. There was no controversy that was stated clearly until that issue that broke the camel back. Now, after the issue of Senator Natasha being very expressive as regards her challenges in the Senate, various Nigerians have also come up on social media. I think I saw a few posts on Instagram where women were saying that Natasha was just being this, Natasha was being a content creator, Akpabio did not really harass her and all that. So when it comes to sexual harassment in Nigeria, I think most women don't even know what sexual harassment is. That's why when you see a woman who is very expressive and vocal about what she's going through, it is seen as something that is being strange.
Yeah.
You should not really talk. This is a man's word. Do you get it? So I know I've listened to Natasha speak. I have had conversations where she was very expressive, and I know this woman is very enlightened. She's not a woman who would not come up to say things that she's not sure of. She's a very detailed person. She brought out account statement of how when she was in the office. She's someone who, to the core of administration, is a very detailed person. And I think it's more like a light to the Nigerian setting that you should not allow certain things go under the carpet because you feel scared to be seen as the victim. Because from what is really happening now, she is the victim, but she's the one who is suffering the whole consequences because she's a woman. And that has to come to gender discrimination. The women folks they are seen as lesser citizens, even though the Constitution has given grants whereby they should be treated equally. But based on what plays out in the political setting, in the Nigerian setting, women are not given their fair diligence as regards how issues are handled when it comes to being a man and a woman. Apart from recently, whereby the issue of rape has been taken with a more firmer approach, these things were not really handled effectively in the past. So I feel that this is a welcome development that we have one woman in the Senate who is like a lioness that is willing to go all the way to tell this man that what you're doing is not proper. And I'm so happy to the fact that she's bold about it. She's very confident about it. She's expressive about it. And she's not ashamed to spill whatever secret that has been said in the past. It shows she's an open book. She's a blank check. She's willing to be very expressive, and I must call her for that. And I believe more women should see her as like a mentor to look up to. That if one woman can be expressive, we should also be expressive. But I also hope that at the end of this case, this whole claims, the end result is not something that will make the Nigerian woman feel that after what at the end of this whole thing, what will happen? But we should give fair hearing to both parties, and both parties should be scrutinized diligently. And I also feel that it's not also proper that the Senate president is still in office while Natasha is going through what would I call an interim punishment for something that she claimed to have given her grounds that this thing was not justifiable. But I rest my case. I hope all this goes well at the end of the day.
Yeah, so thank you very much. There are a few points that I need to highlight that you mentioned. First, you talked about rape, and it's important to let our viewers know that there is a difference between rape and sexual harassment. And most women might think or might mistake sexual harassment for rape. So it's good that you pointed that out, because I saw in one of the protests, pro Akpabio's protest, a lady was asked, what do you think about sexual harassment allegation against Akpabio? Do you support investigation? And she said, why investigation? Did you see Akpabio with Natasha in the bed? So it goes to show the level of ignorance, about sexual harassment. There is a clear-cut difference between sexual harassment and rape or any other kind of sexual misconduct. So some people have already expressed that even with your eyes, you can sexually harass somebody. You can undress an individual just with your eyes without touching the person. Okay, so sexual harassment is subtle, can be very, very subtle. But the point is that for Natasha to come on stage to declare that she has been sexually harassed, something tells me, again, this is my own opinion, that she has proof. And I want to state this very clearly. Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan, if at the end of the day you are given the platform and you couldn't prove anything substantial, we'll be disappointed with you and in you. But it's important, from all indication, it is safe for one to conclude that Natasha has very strong, concrete evidence. And she also said it through her lawyer, that she has concrete evidence to prove her case. So I still wonder why Nigeria has not given her the platform to air her stupidity, quote and unquote, to air her false allegations, quote and unquote. We have not heard anything concrete from the First Lady of Nigeria, the wife of the Vice President, the Minister of Women Affairs. We've not heard anything, to the best of my knowledge, regarding this issue. The only statement made by the First Lady was very condescending, very demeaning, and it goes to show that when someone, crosses a level of victimization, that person fails to remember that there are other people who are still at that level and need to be supported. Because I know that a senator had once sexually harassed the current First Lady when she was a senator, and people spoke up in support of her. So we expected, regardless of Senator Natasha's manner of approach, that the needful should be done. I don't care about the seat arrangement, but it's important to address things from the root cause. We cannot treat seat arrangement if he said this is not the main issue, and we're ignoring what she says was the main issue. Miss Peace, Senator Kingibe, that's Ireti Kingibe, says that there is hardly any treatment that women in the Senate have received that is different from men's, right? So my question is, does that statement dismiss a possibility of gender-based discrimination and harassment in the Nigerian Senate?
Of course, no.
Does Senator Kingibe's statement that women are treated the same as men dismiss a possibility of gender-based discrimination and harassment in the Nigerian Senate?
But he have just said it. Now he has quoted it. He have said it now.
Yes, but does that dismiss the possibility of gender-based? Good. So can you tell us more?
Oh, interesting question. It's relative. The statement, I don't want to completely say it's true or it's false, but it's something that should be looked upon with caution, because yes, over the years there's been movement and attempt and efforts to create that parity when it comes to gender, and it is easy, and it's just very convenient for somebody to say, yes, we have been compliant, it's been abided by, it's been followed and all of this. But in practice, does it correspond to what you have said? I mean, the senator, like every other Nigerian, is entitled to her opinion and we respect that. But the reality, honestly and factually speaking, tells differently. You know, I do not see or I do not envisage that a male senator will be talked down upon the way and manner in which the senator we are speaking about now was being treated from a couple of sessions that were posted on social media. So I really don't think that, with due respect to Senator Ireti, that her statements honestly reflects the practice and the reality we the mass, we the citizens have seen in recent times.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that answers the question, because we know that, you know, there were times in the past that Ireti, Senator Ireti Kingibe was also a victim of, you know, gender-based, you know, inequality in the Senate. And the same Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan was very, very firm and articulate in supporting her motion, which, according to many, didn't go well with the Senate president at the time. Okay, so why we are having this program is to let people know that there is a difference between personal relationship and professional relationship. When it comes to business, business is business. America will tell you wear different hats. Hats is fine. If you are in a club, you wear your club hats. If you are in the office, you wear your office hats. We should learn to find balance and strike the boundary between one type of relationship and the other. Yes, I may have some personal things with you outside of the office, but if we are in the office, let us respect that, just like going to church. If you are in the church, you respect the sanctity of the church. You abide by the rules and respect every human that is in the church. Likewise in the Senate, you don't talk to people differently. You have to accord the same measure of respect to every member of the Senate, regardless of gender or sex. So we should look at all these things beyond what happened, beyond the sitting arrangement, because there has been a build-up somewhere, sometime, and all of us thought, not all of us, many of us thought that the build-up started with when she was told not to talk, that this is not a nice law. And that's why she came out to clarify that this is not even the genesis. And I still want to believe that what she mentioned was the genesis. Was it actually the genesis? There may be something deep that we don't know. And maybe she knows. Maybe Akpabio knows. And they are doing all they can within their power to suppress this voice. So it's important to know that professional relationship is professional relationship. When it comes to business, you speak your business language. When it comes to club, you speak your club language. So in my opinion, Natasha has endured a few things based on what I see. And again, I'm not dismissing the fact that Akpabio may have not, experienced a few things from Natasha. But as far as we can see and we can tell, I think Natasha has ended up being the perpetrator, despite the fact that she was the victim. She came out as a victim. Now the victim is now the perpetrator, while the accused is now the victim. That is an irony of what we have in Nigeria today. Zipporah. So we have a lawyer, the former national vice president of the NBA, who came out on the national TV when he was asked to, some questions around this, about this, concerning this issue. And he said that Natasha was riotous during the sitting arraignment. And also, he asked the question, how can that Senator Akpabio, has never been indicted or harassed or been accused of sexual harassment, even while he was the governor of a state. Now, my question is, how should legal professionals handle sexual harassment allegations to ensure justice rather than political bias?
Thank you very much for your question. How legal practitioners should handle this, I would say that we should consider this from an objective point of view. And I unfortunately have not seen the interview or the where actually the former vice president of the NBA made such a statement. But when we want to bring in character evidence, we should be very careful. We should be very jealous about bringing up such concepts, if I should express myself this way, because if we're talking about sexual harassment, or matter of fact, I like to speak of harassment in the general sense of anything that is unwelcomed, any behavior that is inappropriate, that causes offense, that belittles or threatens the dignity of the human person, should not in any form or shape be tolerated. So as legal practitioners, I think it behoves us to be more objective when it comes to conversations like this. And so topics or arguments, for example, to say that this person has always kept a clean slate, has never had history about something like this, should really not be an issue. We talk about this when it's time to what we do in courts, when you want to plead allocutus, when it's time to, maybe when the court has finally made its giving its verdict, okay, and then you want to plead and say, please, court, can you please temper, how the layman will say, temper justice with mercy. And then the lawyers can say, okay, can I plead on behalf of my client because he's a first-time offender, he has never been known for this. At that stage, we can begin to talk about the character of this person. But at this point, I don't see how you would tell me that by reason only that a person has never done something before, and so it's very unlikely, or it's not probable. As a lawyer, I would not say that it is not probable that a person would do that thing. It has little or no bearing to what we are talking about. You understand? So I would address, I think that other colleagues, and even outside of lawyers, the general public should consider and should address this question from a more objective, perspective, not to hint too much, or place too much premium or advantage, if I would say this, on the fact that this person has never done this, has never done that. We should leave that to when that time comes in court. At this point, we should address the issue as we have seen it, and as reasonably as it should, be considered, and what, like you said, the law says. And given I made from the introduction of this conversation, I gave a legal framework and overview of what is applicable both within what I know in Nigeria and then the other regions like in Europe and then internationally. So what the conversations lawyers should begin to have at this point is how the international agreement conventions, not agreement, the international conventions and treaties that Nigeria has signed and ratified, how we can apply them in practice. And then for the regional, for the examples of Europe that I gave that have a more claimant-friendly provisions, how we can propose legislation, how we can advocate, how we can copy the successes of these other regions. So rather than saying that this person has done this or who did what, when and how, it's not what lawyers should be concerned about. It's about how what we have in place should be applied correctly, and how we can also model other more successful regions to have a better legal framework to curb these happenings. Because just to conclude, that we are hearing about the case of the senator in question because these are persons who are of certain pedigree, and they are of certain privilege, and somehow they have a voice. How about those that we do not see, we do not know of, we do not hear of, And so if we cannot get it correctly with these ones, how much more would people who don't even have a voice, what would happen to them? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Mrs. Peace, sorry, I have a question for you. So the Senate rejected her claim or her petition, right? That because she signed the petition by herself. Does that show? I mean, what sense do you make out of this? Does it prove that the Senate has no laid-down policy on such a thing like sexual harassment against one senator by another senator? Or do you think it is practicably proper for another person to sign a petition that you are presenting against you as an individual simply because you are a member of the Senate?
I think this from time immemorial, Nigeria, like the other viewer has been saying, all these conventions, they are in place. But when it comes to reality, practical, okay, let's do it. Not the saying, did we? That is where we have a problem. The Nigerian Senate, they are all aware of it. I think they are just trying to silence the human. It's a simple thing. This petition, you signed it by yourself. If it is not acceptable, they are supposed to give her a way forward. I think they are just trying to silence her because they believe it's the men's word. Just unfortunate, like the few other representative gender of women that we have, they are not standing up for her. So it's just my take on it. It's not supposed to be rejected. She's supposed to be guided. Okay, this petition is coming from you. You are not supposed to sign the petition. Somebody else, your legal practitioner or whatever, not turning it down. I think they are just wearing one shoe against Natasha. That is just it. They know what they are doing.
Thank you very much. Kingsley and Felix, please, you guys should take turns to air your opinion on that question.
The patriarchy system in Nigeria is something that is rooted in our culture and it's also embedded in our constitution. Discrimination, gender-based violence, and all of this happens to the regular Nigerian without no one speaking about it. I've shared first-hand experience whereby an employee, that's someone who owns a business, slapped a staff, and the staff could do nothing about it. I, in that position, was the manager of the organization. I had to resign because I could not take it. And I told the man that I would not be in a space whereby such thing is seen and it's not done, and nothing done about it. I told the staff on how to go about this to push personal claims and all that, but it all came down to poverty. What will I do? How do I go about this thing? And harassment in workplace is always between the one who has the power and the one who is being abused. And nothing is always done about it in most cases. I hope the Nigerian government and the Nigerian populace will see every reason why this situation or this case should not be something you throw under the carpet. It should not be something that we try to use power and politics to play the real essence of what is being done here, which is someone right was being trampled upon and nothing is done about it. I hope that we'll come to a realization that individuals should be respected, be it male or female. Be respected in your own workspace, be respected as an individual of who you are, and be respected as a being created by God. I hope we get to a point and we treat this situation as two people who want to air their opinion because one has been wronged, and not a situation whereby one is the president of the Senate and one is just a floor member. Because if we bring in bias into the situation, we will lose out the essence of this whole case. And I hope that the regular Nigerian factor, quote unquote, does not come into play here. And I also hope that the judiciary system will not also be biased in their reservation and in their rulings. However, I still hope, this is me always saying hope in this case, because it is bound to a whole lot of circumstance that might play out. This is Nigeria. I also hope that this issue, this case, this act that has been done will be a positive narration or narrative to other things that might unfold based on similar issues of this issue, of this same kind of issue that might come up in the future. And this might be a better base for people to also speak up and reduce workplace harassment, workplace assault, and this issue of power. It is being limited to not the extent of an abuse. This is my submission, and I hope we get it right this time also. My name is Daniel Felix, and I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Felix. Now, the last question I have for all of us is, if you were Senator Natasha Akpoti or Senator Godswill Akpabio, how would you have handled this case better?
If I was Godswill Akpabio, I would have stepped down for proper investigation so that there will be fair hearing from his end and from the end of Natasha. Then in the aspect of what they call it, Natasha, emotions, when you are angry, we advise don't speak. Because no matter how no matter how you are right, you'll get it wrong. But we shouldn't stand on that. We should stand to stop this menace of sexual harassment, especially in the workplace. That is my take and my submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Felix, I want to hear from you.
Okay, this is me trying to play a picture in my head.
I know a lot might have been going on in your head. So spit it out, okay?
Okay. If I was the Senate president and I was being accused of harassment, I think what I would do is lay out all my cards if I was not guilty, because I don't know if
Please speak the truth, okay?
Yeah, I'll lay out all my cards and I will clearly...
You are not guilty. I want you to complete it.
No, because you know yourself now.
Okay.
I'll lay out all my cards, and I will clearly want to be transparent
What
and
if
allow
you
the
were
court.
guilty?
Well, if I was guilty, quote unquote, I think the best thing to do is tell a good story, and that's what he's trying to do. Tell a good story. He's bringing his wife in to give a certain perspective of who he is. First, he will bring his pastor, then later tell a good story.
And he said that he was raised by a very nice woman, his mother.
He's telling a good story. That's the only way you can just see. Nigerians love stuff. If you're going to storytelling, you win the heart of Nigerians. So tell a good story.
Anyway.
But that's just on the side of the Senate president.
Yeah.
But and if I were to be the one who was being harassed,
Natasha, yeah.
Yes, first thing, don't allow your emotions get the better part of you before you express yourself. It was a beat up of events, and I think first thing was to file complaints first. Might not be to the Senate House itself, but you have women, we have bodies that fight for the right of women. Because you cannot, it is impossible to beat a man in his own game, except we have the tools available to win him at that game. I will get my tools ready. I will try to build up my evidence. He would not see what is coming up for him. I would not just give you all my cards, like, okay, come and tackle me. I won't do that. I'll be more, I'm not saying she was Mr. You just asked me just previously. Because I know you're someone who is very detailed and you're someone who's also tactical in their dealings. But I want you to be a bit more direct here. But if you were either the Senate president or you were in the case of someone who was being harassed, how would you have handled the situation?
Well, if I was the Senate president, I think you've answered it, Felix. Zippy is here. Zippy, hello.
So if I were the Senate president, I would put on my cap of being a grassroots person. So I'm one for addressing the root causes, or at least nipping the situations from their very root. And what I mean by this is, if I were guilty, or if I the word guilty is not, but I mean, we're speaking now from a personal perspective, yeah? Okay, so if I knew, or if I know my involvement in this, I would have addressed this issue from the very start. You know, like, I wouldn't have allowed it to get to the point where the whole world is now seeing me as the victor, or as the predator.
The predator, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have allowed it to get to this point if I have some level of culpability. I have some knowledge of this, and so the whole drama of shutting her down, and these are definitely actions that are going to work against me if eventually this matter gets out, which, of course, when you're committing a crime, or when you're doing something that is wrong, there's some percentage of part of you should tell you that one day it can come to the light. So if I were him, I wouldn't have even gotten to the point where I would have even allowed, let's even say pushing him to the wall. I wouldn't have let myself to have fallen for her trap, quote unquote, because I knew my level of involvement. And then let's say I don't even have any level of involvement on the other hand. Now, given my position, given also the fact that according to one of her interviews, she said he once told her on the phone that I am the number 3 citizen. So knowing that you hold such relevant position, I believe that when it comes to women, it's something that even the international community will frown against you if there is any appearance of discrimination. And so let's even say I have no involvement in what she's saying. I should normally be very careful on how I address issues that concern this targeted gender, this gender that are the forefront in discrimination, if I'm to say it this way, So either ways, either I know anything about what she's saying or I did not know, I wouldn't have acted the way I did. So I'm saying this because for example, I'm a grassroots person. I try to take care of things from the roots, not when they escalate. And so this is what I would have done. I wouldn't have even let it get to this point. Yeah, so, yeah.
That's if you were Akpabio. Then if you were Natasha, how would you have handled this better?
If I were Natasha, I would have been more diplomatic about this. As much as I say I'm a grassroots person, I'm a person for lobbying, I'm a lobbyist. I'm very diplomatic. Of course, you can't be in the sphere of international law practice if you're not. And so what I would have done in her shoes was to not let emotions get into my pursuits for justice, my pursuits for recognition of a violation and addressing of a violation. So I would have been more diplomatic. And to put this in context, for example, speaking to the relevant stakeholders in camera, before this outburst. There are ways, like now it does seem like she's a one-man army, because I don't know if there's anyone that is actively on her side now. But if she has done this, besides her husband, of course, but I'm talking about people in power, people who are relevant, who have words to say and people to listen to them, So if I were her, I would have done my background work, not be moved by emotions, and to make sure that I get it, like before he even opens his eyes, he would have seen that I would have made the rounds. Like I would have gotten people to my side, and not because of sympathy, no, but because this is something that you have done to me, and because I know the kind of country that I come from, that if you don't have people on your side, you are more or less, whether you're the victim or not, no one cares. So I think I would have been more diplomatic in attending this issue by first speaking to relevant people and building up my evidence. Now we're talking about evidence as well, building something more concrete, something of course she's got printouts of WhatsApp messages and WhatsApp calls, something like this. I don't know, but there were other ways she would have done background work before coming to the public with this outburst of rage and of distressing emotions and all of this. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Felix threw the question back to me. You want to know my secrets?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, first and foremost, if I were Senator Akpabio, and I know that there are some shady deals, like some things happening in the background, I'll be very careful. First, I'll be careful on how I talk down on her in the public, because he who lives in a glass house does not cast a rock on the other person's glass house. So what I would do is I'll be very careful. Second, I will do my best to draw the line between personal relationship and professional relationship. And I guess that is where Natasha is standing firmly on, obstructing her in her legislative functions and blah, blah, blah. So if I had something with Natasha, Maybe it is real. Maybe I have known her before personally, and now she's married. I still want to continue knowing her that same way, and she's refusing. Again, I'm just creating a hypothesis. I'll be very careful. I cannot just feel, oh, I'm familiar with this girl. I know her. I know her husband. Therefore, I have power to influence. Maybe I have been, pinpointing her brain before. She became a senator, and now she's a senator. I can still adopt some measure. So I think if I were him or he, I would learn to draw that line very quickly. Then, if I were Akpabio, I'll be very clear in my thinking, and be mindful of the words I use, because there are other people that he had, talked to, like to keep quiet, right? But he never used that word clubhouse or nightclub when talking to them. So even if maybe there is something connected to nightclub in the past that I had with her, I would have been very careful not to think or allow my thinking go towards that angle when I am doing my legislative functions. I should still have drawn the line. Then another one is I shouldn't have let this case escalate unless I am crazy, unless I am stupid, unless I don't care, unless I am ready to let Nigeria go down, regardless of whose purse is, red, right? So I would avoid a situation whereby the hallowed chambers will be brought to ridicules. What I could have done was to call Natasha by the side and say, hey, Princess of the Senate, because that's what I learned he calls her. And on a lighter note, why would you be calling her Princess of the Senate? I want to push her to the corner. That's not fair. The Princess of the Senate should be at the forefront. And I think she was seated in on a spot where she was directly opposite Akpabio. I think that was the arrangement from what I heard. So pushing her away, she's no longer the Princess of the Senate. But that's just on a lighter note. So what I should have done was to call her by the side and said, hey, babe, or whatever name, Senator Natasha, or whatever name that I've known her for, to say, hey, this is the Senate. Whatever we are doing should be outside the Senate. If you don't like how I approach you, if you don't like our dealings anymore, if you don't like even if there was no dealings before and I want it now and you don't want it, please, I will stop. Simple. I will stop. And let's not take this thing further. Now, if I was Senator Natasha, and I want to pull this guy pull him by his legs, like carry this guy, what I would do is I would just pretend as if nothing is going on, and I'll be calculating my strategy. Because this is a strategic fight. It's not something that I'll just wake up and start fighting. You have to look at, yes, I know this person personally, but the office he's holding is very, very strategic. He has more power than I would even think, as far as our Nigerian system is concerned, because it is very unfortunate that a senator will be wielding such a power, such an enormous power. So I'll be very careful. I will lobby. I'll meet some organizations, humanitarian and women-based, gender-based violence organizations, and lobby them. Even when the senator told me, hey, go to the other seats, I will stupidly, happily, jejely carry my clothes, carry my bag, carry my whatever, move to that seat. Okay? Then what I would do is, okay, now you don't strike me 1-0. I will give you 1-1. In fact, I'll give you 2-1, 3-1. And when it will happen, it will be like this. Like I will just appear as if I am so friendly with the senator, with the Senate. Nobody will even know what I'm about to do until I release my bombshell. And everybody will be surprised, And by then it will be hard for the senator, because at that time, I am friendly with them. I don't have any rifts. I'm not fighting. I'm not quarreling. I'm just so calm and quiet. So when they see that thing, they'll just feel like, what? So that is what I would have done. I wouldn't have given them any hint that I want to strike. Do you know why? I have this philosophy that I only have one bullet to fight. I only have one bullet to strike. So I can't waste my bullets. In every issue, I only have one bullet. Every issue. So I don't shoot aimlessly. I target my shoots. And most times my bullet has always been hitting the right meat or the right, whatever you can call it. So that is me. That is justice for you.
You said a lot. You have said a lot. I'm like, okay, this is like, we should meet you for more consultation on issues like this.
It's very simple. Hey, see, there is this saying that onye asọrọ nsị tamarụ n'ike. I mean, onye asọrọ abụ tamarụ n'isi, mmanso nsị tayarụ n'ike. Sorry, what that simply means is that if you feel that you are crazy, that you can do something despicable against me, just know that you have no monopoly of violence. But I have to be very strategic. And I guess part of it is because of my condition as a blind person. When I was younger, I used to wrestle with sighted guys. Okay? So imagine a blind person spreading his arm and waiting, getting ready to wrestle.
That's another story. That's another story. Another conversation we'll have later.
But the point is that is the principle that has always been guiding me. Before I stand to wrestle, I'll be sure that, okay, this is, do or die, and I'll make sure that I don't lose that battle. So even though I don't win all the battles, but I don't lose most of the battles. So that is it. I think our viewers will be able to learn more about how best, number one, to behave when you feel harassed, how to approach it, and making sure that you don't lose your battle simply because of your manner of approach. It's very important. And I am saying here on this platform that we stand for justice. We oppose sexual harassment of any sort, especially sexual harassment. Men are also sexually harassed. And one, I think Ms. Ireti Bakari of Purple for Women also says that the Senate is a sex pool of all sorts. And that would be a topic of another day. But the point is that men are also harassed by men, by women. Women are harassed. Women also harass. So sexual harassment can go either way. But if you feel harassed, please, we hope that our insights, the insights from the guest here will be able to help you, guide you on how to channel your grievances, because it's very important. You are dealing with forces, with principalities, with powers, with oppressors, with suppressors, people that would never relinquish power, that would never let you breathe. So it's important that because you need to breathe, you don't have to waste any strategy at all. Be very careful in striking, knowing that if you lose it, you may lose so many things. But we hope that Senator Natasha will stand tall. Regardless of how she's been approaching this situation, we still stand firm with justice. Let fair hearing be granted. Let her be allowed to prove her case. We hope to explore lessons Nigeria can learn from countries that have tackled sexual harassment in government. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and share to support this show. Also, your donations would make a great difference, and the payment details is on the description. Thank you very much for your support, and see you next time.